My name is Dustin Black, and as a part of Clemson Sports Media, we're going to be doing a film breakdown series of Clemson's opponents in the 23 season. Today, we're breaking down the Duke offense. All right, so this is a good example of Duke's run scheme. They run a variation of counter where they pull their center and their tackle a lot. What we saw with the Garrett Riley offense and doing that preview is a lot of guard tackle pull. This is going to be a lot of center and tackle pull. I'll let this play out for a second. So their left tackle for Duke is probably their best lineman and a guy that I think has a lot of NFL upside. I think he will be drafted in April. Really athletic guy for his size, really good feet. Above average in space. You see here how he finishes that linebacker. So he's a really good player, and they're going to get him out in space. They're going to try and get him downfield, use his athleticism, and he's good at it. So, and Duke runs a lot of RPO scheme. They're heavy RPO in the run game typically, but if they're going to run the ball at you, this is typically how they're going to do it. And it's key for Clemson, especially with that strong side defensive end. That's going to be Justin Maskell on Monday. And I think that's one player that a lot of Clemson fans have their eyes on. That we all want to see him take that next step. He's kind of always been buried behind just really talented players. And, now it's his turn to start and, kind of feature in this defense. And we all kind of want to see him take a step. We all saw KJ Henry do the same thing last year where he stepped up into a big starting role and really shined. So really hope to see him take that step. But it's not it's not beyond me to think that Rook Ororo can kick out there and play that role as well. I think he would be a really good run stuffing defensive end. It's important with the defensive line to really set that edge and really contain everything inside. If you don't have an edge to your defense, you don't really have you don't really have a defense. So it's something we're going to look for, and one thing the scheme really puts an emphasis on is when they run this counter, you really got to keep these guys inside and not let them get to the perimeter of your defense. So definitely something we're going to see, and definitely something I'll have my eye on. But Duke last year was actually a heavier run team than they were pass team, so they averaged 37 rushing attempts a game as opposed to 31 passing attempts. Now, some of that's inflated. If Riley Leonard, who likes to run the ball, if he drops back to pass and then he takes off, that counts as a rush. But point being, they still want to be balanced. They still want to be able to run on early downs. And I think if Clemson can do a good job of stopping those runs early and forcing them into obvious passing downs, it'll definitely be a easier night for the Clemson defense. So. Historically, teams that like to run first are not going to have a lot of success against Clemson's defense. I think Clemson, historically, is really good at stuff in the run. And year two under Nick Eason being the run game defensive coordinator, I expect this defensive line to take a step. I don't think it's that big of a deal losing the players that we lost last year, because I just need this defensive line for Clemson to play better as a unit. So this will be a good test. Duke's got a good offensive line, and I just want to see them be able to stuff these runs, especially on early downs. But we're definitely going to see this variation of counter on Monday, and it's definitely one way that Duke loves to run the ball. All right, so this is one look in particular that Duke really likes to run. I chose this play as well because they do go for it on fourth down. You see it's 4th and 2 here. Obviously, they're down by 2 touchdowns at this point in the game, so they're going to be a little aggressive, but they do like to go for fourth down a decent amount. So once you watch this play out, you got pre-snap motion. He's coming over, and then they're going to get in this trips look. And all they're trying to do is get your DBs to miscommunicate, miss an assignment, pick one of the three. Kind of just pick your poison, and we'll take the one that's open. And Georgia Tech actually does a good job with their assignments here. The guy that just eventually catches this ball just runs a good route, and it's hard to defend a perfect ball, and that's exactly what Riley Leonard throws here. As you watch this play out, this guy's going to cross the face of the defender. Good ball, good assignment, and they get the first down and some. So it's a really quick, passing attack. They don't take a ton of deep shots. They will at times, but it's kind of that pre-snap motion, get you looking, and Riley Leonard wants to get the ball out of his hands quick. And you can see what Georgia Tech's doing defensively. They're trying to bring pressure. They're trying to, make Riley Leonard feel a little like he needs to get the ball out, and he does a good job of it. But I thought it was a good rep defensively, good rep offensively, and a good fourth down conversion for Duke. They got a bunch of small, shifty guys in their wide receiver core. One guy we'll go over, Jalen Calhoun. I think he's really good. I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the ACC, and one of the better wide receivers that Clemson's going to see this year. But not a lot of them have a ton of size. They're all pretty small, but shifty and quick players, and they want to get these guys out, out in space with the ball in their hand, and I think Clemson's got a good base of defending that in fall camp and in the spring with Garrett Riley's offense. So, they've seen a lot of these kind of looks and similar concepts and stuff of that nature. So, I have a lot of respect for Duke's offensive coordinator. I think he's a pretty sharp guy. He worked for Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. He worked under Norvell. So he's worked under some good offensive minds, and it shows. I mean, he's a really creative play caller. He's got a really good identity with this Duke offense, and obviously with it being their second year in the system, I think everyone's going to kind of take a step. So it'll be a tough test for Clemson. As down as I am about Duke's defense, I think there's a lot of optimism for Duke's offense this year. I think returning Riley Leonard, one of the better QBs in the AC. Like I said, they got a trio of running backs that are really good, and they return a lot of their top pass catchers. Jordan Moore and Jalen Calhoun both led the team in receptions with 60 plus. And Jordan Moore last fall camp was competing for the QB spot, so he was a backup QB. Didn't earn the job. Riley Leonard did, and they moved him out to wide receiver. And first year as a collegiate wide receiver, 60 something receptions and 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, it's a good season. So I expect him to get better going through spring, going through fall, purely as a wide receiver, having never played that position before. So it's going to be a tough test, and stuff like this is pretty hard to defend. I think that, Makuba is going to be a key on Monday. I think he's going to have a big job. And, we want Clemson's secondary to play kind of like Georgia Tech's playing here, a lot of press man and maybe press them off the line of scrimmage a little bit more. But that's why they do these stacks. So when you do these stack releases, you're basically just, putting your wide receiver in a position to where he can't be jammed at the line of scrimmage. And so you'll see a lot of that. And this is just one aspect of Duke's passing game that I thought they were really good at last year when I watched them play. All right, so this is another really good example of Duke using pre-snap motion in their offense. Like I said, this is one of the strengths and what they do really well. So the guy that's going to be going across the formation and motion, that's going to be Jalen Calhoun, and he's a really good player. So for me, I kind of compare him to Zay Flowers a little bit. I think that they use him really similarly the way Boston College used Zay Flowers while he was there. They're going to line him up everywhere. They're going to put him in motion a lot. They can hand him the ball off jet sweeps. I mean, he's just the utility weapon on offense, and he's a really good player. I think he's one of the better wide receivers that Clemson's going to see all year, and you see it with this clip. So he's going to come across the formation in motion. Watch what it does to the safeties. Safeties have to switch assignments. So a guy that goes from reading the eyes of the quarterbacks now in man coverage. And then you can't really see the boundary receiver because of the scoreboard and the broadcast view, but what he's doing is basically flashes numbers of the quarterback like he's about to catch a screen pass. So what that DB does that's guarding Jalen Calhoun is he bites really hard, and Jalen Calhoun and Riley Leonard make him pay for it. So you watch him flash like he's going to block, and then you're in behind, and Riley Leonard delivers a good ball, and it's a touchdown. So it happens really quick. It's Duke giving you one look, using pre-snap motion, and all of a sudden you're getting your ankles broken in the open field off a double move. So it's something that Clemson's going to have to be prepared for, and it's one of the ways that Duke does a really good job of getting the matchups they want. Because if that's Makuba covering Jalen Calhoun, and they don't like the matchup with Makuba, they can just flip him to the other side of the field, and maybe that's Mickens or maybe that's Jalen Phillips that has to walk down and cover him. It just depends on the matchup they want, and it's what they use this pre-snap motion for, and I think this double move is pretty slick. Obviously, something that they saw on tape when they watched Virginia's defense. This being the first drive or so, so this was definitely part of their game plan. So definitely expect stuff like this and on Monday. Like I said, Jalen Calhoun gets used everywhere. He's really the danger guy. So the way that they use him and the way that they find mismatches in Clemson secondary is going to be huge for the outcome of this game. All right, so I thought this was a pretty good example of what Riley Leonard can do, especially with busted plays or just what he can do with his legs. He's just a really dangerous guy when plays break down or maybe he gets a little pressure on him and can break the pocket. He's a really good runner and he's really quick. I mean, he's quicker than you think he is. Not an overly sized guy by any means, but he's definitely got some juice to him in the open field. So if you'll see, Virginia gets a pretty good pressure on him here. But he just lowers his shoulder, gets his eyes upfield, and just takes off. And what was 2nd and 10 and a busted play, now he's got a first down and then some. And it's just one of the things that Clemson's really going to have to key on. I don't see Virginia really running any sort of spy linebacker or any kind of thing like that. And I kind of expect Clemson to do that. I think Barrett Carter is probably going to have a lot of responsibility of spying the quarterback. Jeremiah Trotter on some plays, I'm sure. So it's just one of those things that Clemson's going to have to key on, and you're going to have to contain his legs. Riley Leonard actually led this team in rushing last season, so they're going to design runs for him. He's going to run through busted plays like this, and just because you get pressure on him and you think you have him down the backfield, and it's not always the case. He can turn busted plays into stuff like this, and that just breaks the back of the defense completely. So it's one thing to stop the run with the running backs with Duke. It's a whole nother task to keep this guy from gashing you on the ground. I mean, he had a couple really long runs last year, like 60-yard plus, 70-yard plus. I mean, he's legit open field speed guy, and he's definitely not afraid to run it. So it's definitely something you're going to see on Monday. I mean, he's definitely going to want to run. I think that, a lot of times in games I watched, with the games where he did run, it kind of made him more comfortable. And it also made the defense, change what they did a little bit and kind of opened up space for the receivers. So it's just one of those dynamics that you're going to have to look out for. And it's going to be interesting. I think if we can hold Riley Leonard to under, 40 rushing yards, I think that's a victory. I think that if he's looking to have anywhere close to 80 or 70 rushing yards, I mean, I think that's a recipe for disaster for Clemson's defense. So I think 40 yards or less is probably reasonable. But one thing that Clemson's defense didn't do a great job last year was finishing sacks and finishing plays. I think Clemson led the nation in QB pressures, but they didn't lead in sacks just because a lot of times you saw those Clemson defenders in the backfield, but they didn't wrap up and they didn't finish the sack. So I think this year you're going to have to finish those plays and getting Duke in this 2nd and 10 look and creating a negative play and getting a sack, and now you're looking at 3rd and 15 and 16. Well, that's a heck of a lot different than Riley Leonard breaking tackle and getting first down and then some. So I think that's going to be a big dynamic in this game as well. All right, so I thought this was a really good way that Georgia Tech neutralized Duke's RPO game a little bit. I'm going to let this play out, but basically what they're going to do is they're going to send a corner blitz. And you see when they send this corner blitz, that defensive end can kind of key on the running back or maybe just put more emphasis on the running back, knowing that this corner has the responsibility of only the quarterback. And even when he doesn't hand it off and he pulls it there, the defensive end is still in a good position to pressure the quarterback and still can get back in line to make a play. So if you see this play out, Riley Leonard pulls it, wants to throw it, but he's got 2 guys in his face, just because that end is just kind of neutralizing that running back portion of the RPO, and the corner coming is unexpected. So when Riley pulls this ball, he looks up and sees a corner blitz, not able to get the ball out of his hands, and they get him for a sack. So I just thought that was a really good way of neutralizing their RPO game. It's something they did a lot of last year. And something that Clemson likes to do. Clemson likes to bring pressure, right? One of the biggest pressure teams in the country. And I see this can be Makuba coming downhill from a safety spot or a nickel position. I can see this being Sheridan Jones coming from his corner position. I think that Clemson's going to use this strategy particularly on RPO plays to neutralize it. I thought it was really effective, and I thought it was a really good way that Georgia Tech did it, and thought it was really effective. All right, so this is one thing I kind of want you to log in the back of your mind when you're watching the game on Monday. It's one of the things that showed up on film, and I know I talked about Graham Barton, the left tackle for Duke, being one of the strongest players on this line, but he has a tendency, and I want you to see it because it shows up on film here. So whenever he kicks upfield just a little bit too much and kind of separates from that left guard, he's really easily beat inside, and this defensive end takes full advantage of it and gets a good sack on Riley Leonard. So whenever he kicks upfield just a little bit too much, it's not hard to put a swim move on him and beat him to the inside, and then you're one-on-one with the quarterback. So it was a great move by the defensive end. Probably something that he saw on film, if I'm being honest. If Graham Barton becomes too detached from that left guard, swim move inside, you can beat him, and then you contain Leonard, not allowing him to get outside the pocket. So it was a good rep by Wake, but definitely something that showed up a couple times on film. Like I said, Graham Barton's a really, really good player. But he's going to be matched up with XT a lot on Monday. And I'm a big fan of XT this year. I think that he has potential to get double-digit sacks if he remains healthy. And if he can, make some good moves on Graham Barton and get a couple of sacks on Duke on Monday, I think he's poised for a big season. And it's one area that, no one's really talking about with Clemson's defense. I think a lot of the narrative has been, defensive end depth has been kind of an issue, or, maybe somewhere where we're really young and inexperienced. But, if XT ends up being the guy out there and ends up, in his money year, just completely just balling out and putting up numbers, I think Clemson has, every chance to bolster one of the best defensive lines in college football. If you're getting production from XT and you get a little production from the other end spot in terms of rushing the passer, I think that it's going to be a really hard task blocking Clemson for 4 quarters. All right, so when I go through Duke's film from last year, I just see a really well coached offense. I don't see a bunch of negative plays. I don't see them turning the ball over a ton. That was year one under Kevin Johns and his system. And I think that they return, a bunch of veteran players in the position where you want veteran players. They return their left tackle. They return Riley Leonard, one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC. And they have dynamic playmakers outside at wide receiver. I think the place where this offense really takes the next step is the tight end position. With their receivers not having a ton of size, I think the tight end, who, they lost the season in injury last year, takes a big step this year. Him being healthy, I think when you're looking for someone to operate in the middle of the field, I think when you're looking for someone to, become a red zone target, I think he's going to be the guy. And I think that he's going to add, another wrinkle to this, to the system and really be an impact player. And just to go through the stats, so Duke averaged 5.9 yards per play last year. That was good enough for 36 in the country. They converted 40% of their third downs. That was good for 43rd in the country. So not good, not great, but not horrible. Just kind of middle of the pack, probably middle of the Power Five. But the place where they really struggled, just like their defense, was red zone scoring. So they only converted points on 75% of their red zone trips. Now, I know that percentage sounds like a lot, but that's 114th best in the country. So that's not all touchdowns. A lot of that's field goals as well. If we're looking at game script for Monday night, like I said in the defensive preview, if both teams are moving the ball and getting to the red zone, and you're asking Duke's offense to get, points in the red zone versus Clemson's points in the red zone against their defense, I just favor Clemson in that matchup. With Clemson being better at red zone offense and better at red zone defense, I think it's pretty easy to say that, through 4 quarters of football, Clemson's probably going to pull away. I got Clemson winning 38-24. I'll use that as my prediction. I think that's what, I'm going to expect on Monday night. That's going over the point total. Vegas has set the point total at 55 points. I think the, total game, we go over that. Not that I'm down on Clemson's defense or anything. Obviously they return a bunch of veterans, but, just the state of college football that we're in, really good defenses don't stop really good offenses anymore. It's one of those things that you see if you put a really good offense on a field with a really good defense, that really good offense is going to put up points. So I think that, Clemson fans may be frustrated at seeing 24 points given up against Duke. If we keep them well below that number, I think that's a huge victory and a huge indicator that, Clemson's defense is going to be good this season, but I'm just not going to expect that out of the gate. I think that Duke's going to come in with a good game plan. I think they're going to throw a lot at Clemson. They've had all fall camp to prepare, so I'm just going to go ahead and predict that Duke puts up 24 points. They move the ball well against Clemson's defense. They just struggle to convert red zone trips to points, and that's kind of how I see the game going. But hope you guys enjoy the game Monday. If you guys enjoy these videos where we're breaking down the film of other teams, make sure you follow along on all the socials. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video, and we'll see you guys next time.